In this video, let's take a look at doing a preliminary least squares adjustment. I'm going to turn my drawing view back on, do a zoom extents, and let's open the point view and notice that points 1, 2, 3, and 8 are bolded. These are the points that we brought in from our GPS control, and we've protected these positions. So in our least squares analysis, these points are going to be fixed. The least squares adjustment is not going to be allowed to change their positions. Traverse PC equates then a protected point with a fixed point in the least squares analysis. Also notice that, and we talked about this earlier, points like 17 and 18 have an equals sign over here in the description. That's a way of indicating that this is a redundant observation. So let's go ahead and take a look at the least squares adjustment. We go up to the desktop and choose Tools, Least Squares, Network Adjustment. Our first stop is here in the Miscellaneous tab, and here's that redundant character, the equal sign, like we talked about. You could choose a different character if you wanted, but this allows us to create redundant observations on any data collector. So we don't need a special observation record type on the data collector. We just use this character in the description. I'm going to click on the a priori values and recall settings either for total station or the PLSS. I think they're the same values the way I have them stored on my settings. But basically you're going to put in the settings that match either your requirements, in the case of like an ALTA ACSM standard survey, or that match you in particular. This is what I typically get for a standard error on an angle or a distance, etc. The closer you can match to what you're likely to do, the better your results will be in the chi-squared test. Okay, so let's start here on the left with the Analyze. I'm going to first tell Traverse PC what I want to analyze. Not the entire survey necessarily, but oftentimes I want to pick particular traverses that contain my control loops or my control data. I'm going to tell Traverse PC I want to reset the current analysis, in case I've been working on this previously, and analyze. It just tells me, are you sure you want to reset? And I say yes. And I get some initial information about how many points are going to be solved for and what kind of redundant observations I have. Now, some of you are used to coming from a batch file where you put the observations in and then read them into a least squares program. And I want to show you that that's all here. So here are my points, and Traverse PC knows which points are fixed and which points are free, and uses the information out of those traverses to establish that for me. So I don't have to come in and create this manually. Same way with the observations, and I'm just going to sort these. So here are all my horizontal angles. My precisions, of course, are coming from my a priori values. Here are my distances. Okay. So I don't have to come in and create all these in a batch file. Traverse PC has done it for me. And if I change my data in the traverses, I can simply come back and reset the current analysis to get right back to this point. And that's all I have to do to set myself up to solve the least squares. So now let's click on the Solve tab and just come right over and hit the Solve button. Traverse PC goes through whatever iterations it needs to. In this case, it found a solution in 3 iterations. It passed the chi-squared test, which means my population of samples was a good fit for those standard errors. And now I'm going to come over to the Report tab. And I want to just include residuals, adjusted coordinates, and the statistics. I'm not going to include anything else initially here. I just kind of want to get a preliminary look at what I'm looking at for errors here. Let's hit the Report button and choose OK. Or just move this over. Let's move ourselves back up past the residuals and our coordinates up to the statistics. So I see the kind of things I would expect to see in any least squares adjustment. Okay. I've asked for the statistics, so that's what I'm getting here. It tells me what kind of standard error of unit weight I have, how well I passed the chi-squared test, and then this is what I'm going to go for right away, the adjusted coordinates. I want to see what my residuals are on the coordinates and see what kind of adjustments I experienced in this control network. And I can look down here and say that these are acceptable or not acceptable, okay, depending on the type of survey that I'm doing. And then, of course, I can come down and take a look at the redundant points. And I usually just jump right down to the residuals because I want to see, once it did the adjustment, how much did my angles change? And I don't want to see any big differences here. And in fact, most of these are zeros or just a second or two. I can do the same thing for the residuals on the distances. So again, I'm looking to see how much the distances change to fit the adjusted positions. And I don't want to see any big differences here. In fact, for the most part, it looks pretty good. So you can kind of decide if those are acceptable or not. It's pretty easy for you, however, to just close out that report, leave this dialog box open or close it, and come back and take another look at your data and say, is that really what I had, or are there some areas I need to fix? Are there some shots I need to go back out and redo to strengthen that? Of course, Traverse PC has the blunder detection available for you, so you can have it highlight any areas that you might want to go back and look at. Now keep in mind that up to this point I haven't adjusted any coordinates. So I haven't said apply that least squares adjustment to my survey points. I'm just looking at the numbers out of the least squares analysis to see where the errors might be.